All right, today we're going to dive into a story about how one man completely transformed his life, all because he learned how to master the art of risk.
You know that feeling, right? When your life just feels like it's on a loop. It's safe, sure. It's predictable, but it's also kind of boring. It's that feeling of being stuck in a rut you just can't seem to climb out of.
So, let's talk about Shubham. He was living that classic daily grind. Wake up, go to the office, come home, wait for the weekend, and then do it all over again. His life felt flat, and he had this nagging feeling that he was losing a part of himself in that routine. But then, something completely random happened that just broke that cycle. He was in a bookstore one day and stumbled upon this book with a title that practically jumped off the shelf at him, The Art of Risk. Little did he know, this one book was about to change everything. Right away, in the very first chapter, he finds this idea that just clicks. The point isn't to be reckless or careless. No, it's about learning to take calculated risks. And what's the first step on this new path? To stop running away from your fear, and instead turn around and really look at it. So, what even is a calculated risk? Well, it's not about jumping off a cliff and just hoping for the best. It's more like checking the parachute, knowing the wind conditions, and having a clear landing zone. Shubham suddenly remembered his friend Arjun's bungee jump. At the time, he thought Arjun was just being crazy, but now he gets it. Arjun wasn't being reckless. He was trusting a system, one with proven safety measures. That was a calculated risk. So the book poses this really tough question that forces Shubham to be honest with himself. What's the one thing he always avoided? And the answer hit him like a ton of bricks. It wasn't heights, it wasn't spiders. His deepest, most paralyzing fear was simply the fear of failure itself. This realization, it really lit a fire under him. He'd always dreamed of being a freelance photographer, so he started breaking down that fear. He listed his worst-case scenarios. Okay, what if I get no clients? Well, I can do free shoots to build a portfolio. What if I run out of money? Simple, I'll just keep my part-time job for security. Instead of letting fear stop him, he built a plan around it. And then he took the very first real step. He went out and bought a proper camera. And then, bam, the perfect opportunity drops right into his lap. A friend's wedding photographer cancels at the very last minute, and they ask Shubham to step in. Now the old Shubham? Oh, he would have totally freaked out and said no. But this new, prepared Shubham, he said yes. And guess what? The photos were a massive hit. He felt this incredible rush from actually facing his fear and winning. Now, that first success was a huge confidence boost, but it was really just the start of the journey. The book's next lesson was even bigger. You have to learn to see challenges and, even failures, not as walls, but as stepping stones. I absolutely love the way the book describes this. It says resilience isn't something you're just born with. It's a muscle. And every time you face something hard and push through it, you're basically in the gym, doing another rep, making that resilience muscle just a little bit stronger for next time. So Shubham basically created his own little resilience training program. He started taking on these small, manageable challenges. At work, he volunteered to give a team update, which terrified him, but he did it. He went trekking with Arjun, tackling his fear of heights just one step at a time. He even got brave enough to enter a photo contest. Now, he didn't win, but he had the courage to ask the judges for feedback. He even did a 100-kilometer cycling marathon. And while he didn't finish, he completed an incredible 75 kilometers, proving to himself he could do way more than he ever thought possible. And this became his new mantra. Failure is not a final verdict, it's just data. Losing that photo contest didn't mean he was a bad photographer. The feedback he got about his lighting was just information, a lesson he could use to get better. This shift from seeing failure as a judgment to seeing it as feedback was a total game changer. All of these little experiences, they start to add up, and it leads him to a much deeper understanding of what courage really is. He started to realize that it wasn't about not being afraid. True courage was all about knowing the difference between taking a smart risk and just being reckless. So, what's the real difference? Well, courage is built on a foundation of preparation and making informed choices. Recklessness is just impulsive and unprepared. The book uses the perfect example, a stunt pilot. To us on the ground, what they do looks totally insane, right? But what we don't see are the thousands of hours of practice and planning that go into every single maneuver. That's courage, not recklessness. And that's when the ultimate test came along. His friend Arjun invited him to go skydiving. Instantly, that old, deep-seated fear of heights came roaring back. But this time was different. Shubham didn't just react with fear. He researched. He looked up the company's safety record. He talked to the instructors. He methodically turned this terrifying idea into a calculated risk. So, the moment of truth arrives. He's at the edge of the plane, and his heart is just pounding in his chest. But as he steps out into the open air, something amazing happens. The fear, it wasn't just smaller, it was just gone. It was replaced by this incredible, thrilling feeling of freefall. In that one moment, he had truly, literally left his old comfort zone miles below him. So you think conquering his biggest fear would be the end of the story, right? But his journey wasn't over, not by a long shot. He was about to learn that personal growth is never a solo mission. The next big lesson was all about the power of community. See, the old Shubham would have tried to figure everything out on his own, but now he was actively looking for connection. He joined a photography group and learned new tricks that totally elevated his work. At his job, he jumped into a team project and saw how working together created something way better than he could have done alone. And maybe most importantly, he started really talking to Arjun about his fears and his wins, realizing that everyone struggles. And he has this big realization that a community isn't just there to catch you if you fall, like a safety net. It's actually a launch pad. It's a source of inspiration, a sounding board for ideas, and it's what pushes you to keep growing. Okay, so we've walked through Shubham's whole journey, from feeling stuck in a monotonous life to finding adventure and purpose. His story is pretty incredible, but it brings us right back to that first question. What about your story? The amazing part is that Shubham didn't have to quit his job or move to a new country. The biggest change was all internal. It was his mindset. By learning to analyze his fears, build his resilience, and connect with people, he stopped being just a character in a story. He became the author. And that brings us to maybe the most powerful idea in the whole book. The most successful people aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who are more afraid of not even trying. The biggest risk you can take isn't failing. It's looking back on your life and wondering, what if? So I'll leave you with this final thought. Shubham's entire adventure began with one small, simple step. He bought a camera. So what's your next adventure? What's the first sentence of your next chapter going to be?